If you've ever said, "Why is it so hard to start?" Even the smallest things, this video might explain everything. The emails pile up, the laundry becomes a roommate. You sit there frozen, watching your to-do list grow while your motivation flatlines. And everyone else, they make it look effortless. But what if the real reason you're stuck isn't laziness? What if it's trauma? Today we're diving into a misunderstood truth that could reframe your entire self-image. Why your lack of motivation might actually be a survival response. Let's talk about why your brain is protecting you by shutting you down. Let's start here. Trauma doesn't always look like what you think it looks like. Most people picture trauma as a major car accident, or a childhood filled with violence, or something dramatic enough to make a movie out of. But trauma can also be subtle, quiet, and completely invisible from the outside. It might look like growing up with emotionally unavailable parents, being constantly criticized for your feelings, or spending years learning how to become invisible just to stay safe or liked. That kind of chronic emotional stress doesn't leave bruises, but it rewires your nervous system all the same. Psychiatrist Dr. Gabor Mate once said, "Trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. And that inside part, that's where your executive functioning lives, the mental tools you use to plan, decide, act, and follow through." So if your nervous system is in survival mode, yeah, it's going to look like you're lazy. But really, your brain might be screaming, "Don't move. It's not safe yet." Let's talk about the way your body responds to stress. There's a theory called polyvagal theory. And while the name sounds complex, the idea is surprisingly intuitive. When your brain senses a threat, it automatically responds in one of four ways: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight mode might look like powering through things with intensity. Flight? Maybe you start cleaning the house obsessively to avoid that one task. But freeze, that's the one we're here for. Freeze is when your thoughts get foggy, your body feels heavy, and your motivation flatlines. You want to move, but can't. You're not choosing stillness, your body is enforcing it. And if you grew up in situations where fight or flight weren't safe or effective, freeze became your default. Not because you're weak, but because your body decided that was the most protective option available. So when someone says, "Just do it," and your system locks up, it's not because you're lazy, it's because your nervous system still believes moving forward is risky. Now, let's go even deeper. You've probably heard the term burnout, especially if you're a millennial or Gen Z. But what many people are experiencing today isn't just burnout, it's nervous system collapse. Here's a metaphor that might help. Your brain has a kind of window, called the window of tolerance. When you're inside that window, you feel capable, grounded. But trauma shrinks that window. So now, even small tasks, like scheduling a doctor's appointment or answering a text, can feel massive. Not because you're being dramatic, but because your brain is operating outside its capacity. And then what happens? You freeze, then you feel guilty for freezing. That guilt adds more stress, which deepens the freeze. It's not procrastination, it's not laziness, it's a shutdown loop. Let's zoom in on that freeze guilt shame loop, because it's brutal. You pause because you're overwhelmed, then you feel guilty for not acting. That guilt spirals into shame. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? And shame shuts the whole system down. It's not that you're avoiding the task, you're avoiding the pain of disappointing yourself again. You're avoiding the voice that says you're failing at being a person. And here's the trap. The more ashamed you feel, the harder it becomes to reach out or restart. So you sink deeper into stillness, feeling more and more stuck. Not lazy, just buried in silence. Let's take it further. Trauma doesn't just shape your feelings, it rewires your brain. If that trauma happened during childhood, it can disrupt how the prefrontal cortex develops. That's the part of your brain that helps you make decisions, organize tasks, and stay focused. At the same time, your amygdala, your fear center, becomes overactive. So even thinking about doing the thing can activate your stress response before you've even moved. Imagine trying to focus on your taxes while your brain is yelling, "There's a threat." That's not laziness, that's survival mode. Another thing we don't talk about enough. Your brain doesn't just remember events, it remembers how things felt. So maybe you don't even recall why certain tasks feel overwhelming, but your body does. Maybe that math test from 7th grade, where you froze and got called stupid, left an imprint, and now any spreadsheet gives you a full-body nope. Emotional memory is sneaky like that. We think we're procrastinating, but sometimes we're avoiding an emotional minefield we can't even name. And here's why this gets confusing. Trauma and ADHD symptoms often overlap. It's not that trauma causes ADHD, but both can result in executive dysfunction, emotional overwhelm, time blindness, and memory gaps. A lot of people get misdiagnosed or missed entirely. They're not broken, they're not lazy, they're just exhausted from constantly trying to override their brain's alarms. If any of this feels way too familiar, like I just narrated your inner monologue, tap that like button. Not just for the algorithm, but because more people need to know they're not alone. And if you've ever been called lazy when you were really just overwhelmed or frozen, drop a brain emoji in the comments. Let's build a space that understands. And if this kind of validation helps, subscribe. We do this kind of thing every week. Let me say something directly to you. Your freeze response is not a character flaw. It's not a failure of discipline. It's not a lack of ambition. It's your nervous system trying to protect you, the only way it knows how. The problem is, society can't see that. It only sees the outside, the silence, the stillness, the missed deadlines. So instead of understanding, you get judgment. Instead of support, you get try harder. But trying harder when your body is already locked down. That's like pressing the gas while your emergency brake is on. You don't go anywhere, you just burn out. We need a new narrative. When your mind whispers, "I'm lazy," try asking instead, what do I need to feel safe enough to take the next step? Or, am I overwhelmed? Or just severely undersupported? This isn't toxic positivity, it's emotional truth-telling. Here's something else worth unpacking. Procrastination is rarely about poor time management. It's usually about emotional regulation. We avoid tasks that stir up shame, that remind us of past failures, that carry even the slightest risk of judgment or rejection. And if you have a history of trauma, even low-key, quiet trauma, that avoidance gets wired into your survival instincts. You're not avoiding the task, you're avoiding the pain you associate with it. And that makes sense. Let's talk about reclaiming productivity. You've probably had days where being productive meant 5 hours of deep work, knocking out errands, and maybe even hitting the gym. And yeah, those days feel good. No shame in that. But here's the thing. That can't be your baseline every single day, especially not while you're healing. Some days productivity means sending one email, or reheating food instead of skipping dinner, or brushing your teeth even when your inner critic says, "What's the point?" None of that is failure. That's adaptive functioning under strain. That's resilience, not regression. You get to redefine success in a way that actually honors your nervous system, not punishes it. Let's practice a reframe together. Instead of "I'm lazy," try "I'm navigating overwhelm. My body doesn't feel safe enough to act. I'm healing," and that takes energy too. You don't have to believe these right away. Just test them. Try them on like a jacket, because how you talk to yourself becomes how you treat yourself. Here are a few more reframes you can keep in your back pocket. Rest is not laziness. It's repair. Stillness isn't failure. It's part of the rhythm of recovery. I'm allowed to start small and stay small for now. Try saying these out loud, even if they feel weird at first. You're not trying to fake your way to healing. You're trying to talk to yourself like someone who matters, because you do. Also, don't underestimate how much healing can happen through your body. You don't need to run marathons or do hot yoga in Bali. Sometimes it's just standing up and shaking your hands for 10 seconds, walking barefoot on grass, breathing into your belly instead of your chest, even placing your hand over your heart and saying, "I'm safe right now." These tiny physical cues tell your brain the threat has passed. They reopen the door to your prefrontal cortex, the part of your mind that makes decisions, plans, and helps you move forward. So the next time you feel frozen, don't start with a productivity hack. Start with your body. Let it know, "We're okay now." And if no one has ever told you this before, let me be the first. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are carrying things you were never meant to carry alone. And little by little, you're allowed to put them down.